So we talked together about the electron carriers. Now let's learn about the glycolysis process. So glycolysis means sugar splitting. So it's the first step your cells use to get energy from the glucose. Okay, it happens in the cytoplasm of the cell and doesn't require the oxygen. You know what's cytoplasm, right? I don't have to show you this. This is the nucleus, this is cytoplasm, and the glycolysis is going to happen in the cytoplasm. Okay. So think of the glycolysis like breaking a candy bar glucose in the half to get two smaller energy bars your body can use. Okay, so imagine you have a big candy. Okay, you have a big candy, but you cannot eat yourself in once. What you're going to do, you're going to break it down into two. You're going to first break it down into two, right, so that you can use it now, you can eat it now. So same with the glucose, our body should do the glycolysis, should split the glucose into two always, okay, in order to use it effectively. Okay, in order to use it effectively, our body is going to break down the glucose into two. What's the formula of the glucose? Can you please tell me what's the formula of the glucose? This is the formula of the glucose, right? This is the glucose, one glucose molecule. It's going to enter to the cytoplasm, okay? It's going to enter to the cytoplasm. It gets split into two molecules of the pyruvate. It's going to make two molecules of the pyruvate. What's the formula of the pyruvate? Its formula is C3H6 and O3. This is the formula of the pyruvate, okay? This is the formula of the glucose, and this is the formula of the pyruvate. Okay, but first the cell has to spend 2 ATP to begin this reaction. In order to make the pyruvate, in order to do the glycolysis, our body needs 2 ATP. Our body should spend 2 ATP to begin this reaction, like a small investment. Okay, so our body is going to use 2 ATP for this process. Okay, 2 ATP is used for this process. Okay, 2 ATP is used. It's not released, it's used. Okay, so what's going to happen next? The products of the glycolysis. So then we are going to get two pyruvate molecules. Okay, so what's happening here in the glycolysis? Two NADH molecules are also participating or releasing. Okay, in this process we had, do you know, the electron carriers? This glucose molecule is going to release the electrons. It's going to release the electrons, and NAD plus is going to come like a taxi. It's going to pick up those electrons. When it picks up those electrons, what's going to happen? It's going to be reduced. It's reduced to the NADH. Okay, it's released. It's becomes the NADH. So two molecules of the NAD plus is going to come to this reaction. And how many NADH is going to release? Of course, two NADH is going to release. So two molecules of NAD plus is reduced to the two molecules of NADH here. So two molecules of the ATP took part in this reaction, so participated in this reaction, invested to this reaction, and as a result, we are getting, after the reaction, 4 molecules of the ATP. Okay, after the reaction, we are getting 4 molecules of the ATP. So what's the net result? So what's the result of this glycolysis process, right? So this is the glycolysis process. I understand this is the glycolysis process. Glycolysis, splitting of the sugar into two, splitting of the glucose into two. I split it down into two molecules of the pyruvate. Pyruvate is exactly the half of this glucose molecule. In the glucose, you have 6 carbon, but in the pyruvate, you have 3 carbon, 12 hydrogen, 6 hydrogen, 6 oxygen, 3 oxygen here. Okay, so 2 molecules of the pyruvate, this is equal to the glucose. I'm just splitting it into 2 parts, but when I split, a lot of electrons are going to release. That's why 2 molecules of electron carriers, which is oxidized NAD plus, is going to enter to this reaction, and after the reaction it will be reduced to NADH, 2 molecules of NADH, and we are investing for before this reaction, in order to start this reaction, I'm going to use 2 molecules of the ATP, but after the reaction, I'm getting 4 molecules of the ATP. But before that, I used 2 molecules of them. So that means my net gain, my net result of the ATP, my profit is 2 molecules of the ATP. So in this reaction, 4 minus 2 equals to the 2. So 2 molecules of ATP is released in this reaction. This is the net result of ATP, net ATP result. So after this reaction, what we are getting? Net gain of 2 molecules of the ATP, okay? In this reaction, we are getting 2 molecules of the ATP. So 2 NAD plus molecules capture electrons and converts to 2 NADH. So we are getting 2 NADH electron carriers from this reaction. And 2 pyruvate molecules are being produced here, okay? 2 pyruvate molecules. This is the products of the glycolysis reaction, okay? If I give you the medical example, in the red blood cells, the glycolysis is the only source of the ATP. Okay, you know what's a red blood cell? This is the erythrocytes. In the erythrocytes, the glycolysis is the only source of the ATP because they don't have the mitochondria. In the red blood cells, it's so small, it's so tiny, it doesn't have the nucleus, even the mitochondria. They don't have the mitochondria. That's why they rely on 100% of the glycolysis. Those red blood cells, they do the glycolysis process all the time. The glycolysis is the only source of the ATP in the red blood cells. Okay? So as you can see, this is the diagram I have explained to you. Glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm, okay? And what's going to the reaction? So 1 molecule of the glucose is going to the reaction. 2 molecules of empty oxidized NAD plus is going to the reaction. And 2 molecules of ATP is going to the reaction. The net result is 2 ATP, 2 pyruvate, and 2 NADH molecules. And this process doesn't require the oxygen. This is anaerobic process, okay? It's anaerobic. It's written here, it's anaerobic. Okay, so then what next? So we made the pyruvate. So what's next? Oxygen decides the next step, okay? Oxygen decides. And depending on the whether oxygen is available, the pyruvate takes 2 different passes, okay? If the oxygen is not available, if you don't have the oxygen, so what's going to happen? The pyruvate becomes the lactic acid, okay? So pyruvate becomes the lactic acid or it becomes the ethanol, okay? No more ATP is made after the glycolysis, after that. Happens during the intense exercise when muscles, they lack the oxygen. You're going to the gym after 1 year pause, and after 1 year, you're going and working on your biceps. The day after, your biceps hurt so much, they will give you pain. It's because of the accumulation of the lactic acid. Why it's happening? Because during the intense exercises, when your muscles they lack the oxygen, your body cannot produce or cannot your hemoglobin will rush, of course, but they cannot provide enough oxygen, the oxygen in the demand of this exercise, okay? They cannot make it fully. That's why your cells will lack the oxygen. After that, the lactic acid will be produced, and this lactic acid will give you the pain, okay? For example, after a sprint, so muscles produce the lactic acid that leads to the muscle soreness. You know what's muscle soreness? This is a muscle pain. This is your body using the anaerobic glycolysis to survive low oxygen. In order to survive the low oxygen, in order to the cells to live, they use the lactic acid production. So yeah, they use the wave of fermentation, okay? So if the oxygen is available, when you're breathing normally, when everything is enough, so it goes to the aerobic pathway, okay? So pyruvate enters to the mitochondria then. It was in the cytoplasm, now it's entering to the mitochondria. It goes to the pyruvate oxidation, then Krebs cycle, then electron transport chain, and it can produce up to 36 ATPs. In the glycolysis, we just produce 2 molecules of the ATP. This is a net result. But in case of the aerobic respiration, if the oxygen will be persisted, so when the oxygen will be more than enough, when it's more than available, it's going to produce up to 36 and more ATP molecules, okay? For example, in the heart muscle cells, which have high oxygen supply in your heart muscle, you know, the oxygen supply is high. Pyruvate goes all the way to the electron transport chain. It goes to the electron transport chain reaction. This is the fourth part of the cellular respiration. Uh, in order to produce maximum ATP to support continuous heart beating, always, okay? When you have heart attack, what's going to happen? Pain. So you feel the pain. Why pain? Because your muscles are not working enough, right? Lack of ATP. So that's why lack of ATP, that means no muscle working, that means pain, right? All the time. And no ATP means lactic acid formation. So those lactic acid will cause pain later. So this is all about this. And during exercise, low oxygen builds up the lactic acid. Red blood cells, there is no mitochondria. They use only glycolysis. They only rely on 2 molecules of the ATP which was produced. Okay. And the heart cells, they continuously use what? Continuously use the oxygen. So you know what stroke? Insult. Stroke, if the oxygen is cut off, cells revert to the anaerobic glycolysis, which damages from the lactic acid buildup there, okay? Imagine there is a stroke. Stroke means lack of oxygen. If it is ischemic stroke, this means lack of oxygen, means lack of ATP. That means organ failure, anaerobic respiration, glycolysis, no oxygen. Which way? Lactic acid formation, and it gives what? Pain and organ death, damage of the brain, okay? So, any questions? Clear everything?
Yeah.
This is all about the glycolysis process. So you can read here as well. So medical example is also given. Red blood cells rely on glycolysis. It used to ATP at the beginning, but produce for everything that I have mentioned now. It's written in these slides. Okay, you just have to read it. Thank you.